Deep within the confines of a large stone building, emit the ominous whispers of your nightmares. The sounds radiate seemingly from every direction, and they reverberate off your walls. At times, they seem like innocent cracks of the building settling, but at other times, the sounds seem to be directly speaking to you. You go searching for answers, but be careful what you wish for. The answer you find may not be the answer you seek. Within the walls of this ancient building, an immemorial terror so vast feasts upon your greatest fears. This is It Records. Welcome back, all you creatures of the night. Thank you for joining us here at the It Records podcast. It is I, Matt Johnson, one of your hosts of the show, and I'm joined as always with the other hosts of the show, Peter Hansen, Lindsay Clark. Insert audience applause.
I literally was just gonna fucking say that. Like cheering, like
Yeah, we can add that in. And nobody knows we're not in front of a live studio audience.
That'd be a nice touch.
Just like every episode, we're in front of a live studio audience.
Very unsafe right now.
Fair.
Yeah. But guys, since the last time we spoke, I was just kind of curious, before we launch into what we're doing today, what movie we picked. What have you guys been watching? Horror or otherwise? What's been on your radar? What's new?
Not a whole lot, honestly. I finally finished BoJack Horseman. I think that's a really good show that people need to watch. And then right before we started recording, I got back into Venture Brothers because, it's I feel like it's always a show I'm, super far behind on because it's, every 2 years there's a season, and then, it doesn't come until, Hulu until, a year later. So I feel like I haven't watched a show in, 3 years.
Yeah.
And Doctor Who, that's all I've been really watching.
Yeah, I was telling Matt before we started recording that all of a sudden I felt drawn back to the Real World versus Rogue Rules challenge that airs on MTV. There's 35 seasons of it now.
That's quite a bit.
Yeah, it is. So that's good quarantine material. So I found out that Pluto TV plays, they have a challenge channel that plays it literally all the time. And my 14-year-old self rejoiced. I was just so happy that I found that. So I've already seen, the same. They only play, a few certain seasons. So I've already seen, one season twice in a week. So, it's not perfect, but, it's there. What about you, Matt?
I've been watching pretty frequently Community, which is now on Netflix, but I've seen that show conservatively, as I was telling Lindsay, probably 4 or 5 times all the way through. I've watched that show.
It's a good show.
It's a good show, and my girlfriend has never watched it. She's seen episodes here and there, so it's kind of fun to start that show over and watch it with someone for the first time and see these jokes I've watched numerous times. So that's been a fun experience. And I think the other show that I've been kind of keeping up on is What We Do in the Shadows on FXX.
I've been meaning to watch that.
Have you seen it at all, any of the show?
I've seen one episode. I just put it off because it's a show that I was gonna watch with Courtney because she seemed to like it. But right now, what we're watching together is Schitt's Creek, which is also on Netflix. It's a very good show.
Yeah.
And then because we got caught up with The Good Place, and we can't watch the final season yet because it just aired. It's in a weird in between phase where we can't stream it. And then when you said you're gonna go to Community, Courtney's been meaning to wanting to watch that. So as soon as we're done with Schitt's Creek on Netflix, I think we're gonna jump to Community.
Nice. It'll be worth it.
Yeah, I like that show a lot, and I think she's only seen a handful of episodes.
But for the podcast, we watched a horror film, as we always do. If you picked up on the trend or theme of this podcast, that's what we do. So for this week, we watched the 1980 horror film directed by Dario Argento, Inferno.
I do not know what price I shall have to pay for breaking what we alchemists call silentium. The life experiences of our colleagues should warn us not to upset laymen by imposing our knowledge upon them. The book!
What?
There are mysterious parts in that book, but the only true mystery is that our very lives are governed by dead people.
In the beginning, there were three mothers, the same as there were three fates and three furies. Man has always mistakenly called them by one terrifying name.
I'm afraid. I'm afraid to be left alone. Carla?
My sister. Where is my sister?
It's as if I were constantly being watched. And at times, I think I actually feel a presence, as if someone were in the room with me.
Who lives in this damned house?
Someone who is waiting.
But who?
You are being watched.
This was my pick this week.
That's true.
Inferno. Yeah, so had you guys seen it before? Or
I have.
I did not.
Okay.
How do you?
No, actually, I hadn't. And that's what I was going to, I guess, get into before we did the plot. So people had some bearings about the movie that it's kind of a thematic sequel, spiritual sequel, whatever, to Suspiria, which we've done on the podcast, an earlier episode, and that's probably the more prominent, or one of the more prominent Dario Argento films, is Suspiria. So this is kind of follows the same storyline of the three mothers that he brought up in Suspiria. So I really wanted to see this, and now I have a subscription to Shudder, and it's on Shudder if you'd like to watch it. So I decided we should do it for the podcast, so it would also be a sequel episode of sorts to Suspiria. And before we kind of go into maybe plot or horror significance, I wanted to get your guys' take on, would you consider this sort of a direct sequel to Suspiria, or how did you view it in relation to Suspiria?
I think it can be standalone. You know, it wasn't. I haven't seen Suspiria since the last time we recorded on it, so that's been probably at least over a year. year and a half. So, I mean, I don't think you need to, watch one to watch the other necessarily. Does it help? Sure. But, yeah, I think you can watch either or and be fine.
I feel like that also was, like, really prominent. That kind of, like, spiritual sequel was very prominent in horror movies for a while, and I don't know why. Like George A. Romero's movies are kind of like that with his Dead movies, and then, like, John Carpenter has, like, a weird trilogy, and I think there's another horror director in there, probably, that's got, like, a sister sequel or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah, so thank you for that, and just for people who have seen neither of those and are not really privy to giallo horror movies, essentially what Inferno is about, it's an American college student in Rome, and then his sister who's in New York. They're both music students. They start to investigate a series of killings in both locations where they believe their resident addresses are the domain of two covens of witches. The main character, or the first protagonist we see, Rose, is reading a book called The Three Mothers, and each mother is said to have a dwelling, a coven, a house that is where they live or whatever, and they basically control the world through these houses, sort of.
Yeah.
It's kind of how... Okay.
Yeah. I guess, like, they said New York.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it was the most cruel and youngest of the sisters. I remember that. I think Italy was the oldest. I think the other one they said was in Germany.
Yeah.
And the Germany one is Suspiria, which is Mother Suspiriorum, Mother of Sighs. And so that's the one we've seen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So Suspiria...
Okay.
Go ahead. Okay. Yeah, so that's the one in Germany there, I believe they're referencing in Friedberg, where the Ballet Academy was in Suspiria, and we saw Mother Suspiria, or the Mother of Sighs. And so I don't think in Suspiria, and I could be wrong, no, I think, never mind, I take that back immediately. They do mention the three mothers in Suspiria. They do mention that there's these three witches, but in the start of this one, there's a book that's called The Three Mothers, and there's really a voiceover narration at the beginning that kind of gives you exposition into that they're mothers, they're sisters, and as Pete was saying, kind of some characteristics of each that we haven't seen before.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't seen the third one. I know it took a while for Dario Argento to get the third quasi-sequel to get made. I think it got made in, like, 2007 or some shit.
Yeah, like 27 years later.
I was like, that's really crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy to think, because 77 was Suspiria and 1980 was Inferno. And 20th Century Fox, I believe, had the production rights and, like, the distribution rights to Inferno, and because of the success of Suspiria, and wanted to, like, push this thing out and get a big box office hit. And I just feel like it would have made sense to immediately follow up with the trilogy instead of 27 years later coming out with The Mother of Tears.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense.
Just really had to perfected that script, you know? It's how you know it's really good, is when it takes that long.
So,
yeah, that's it.
Basically, like, it took us almost as long as the three of us have been alive for him to release the third movie.
Yeah.
Damn.
Mm-hmm. To get that third one done. Which is crazy.
I don't think he's even directing anymore.
I believe you're right, but I also believe I heard that he's coming out with a new one. Like, he hadn't in a while, and I don't know the name, but I recently read that I think he's in the works to make a new movie. So it's been in the shadows.
There's no way that can be good.
Yeah, it's.
And I say that with as much love for Dario Argento as possible, because I'm a fan, and he's just lost the touch. He's not a prominent force in horror anymore. He's very old.
Well, we'll see if he still has it, right?
Yeah, he's got to be up there in age. I don't know his exact age, but I mean, this came out in like 1977 was Suspiria.
He started working on. He
Which is
started
40
like,
years ago.
Once Upon a Time in the West was like his very early movie he worked on, and it's like that's fucking from the 60s.
Yeah. Well, Pete, you mentioned you're a fan of Dario Argento. We talked about Suspiria. We can kind of, I guess, get into like horror significance or the subgenre it falls into. We've mentioned in the past a lot of Dario Argento's are considered giallo films, and we've done some giallo films.
Didn't consider is Suspiria considered one? I know we talked about it, but I don't remember if it actually is considered one.
I wouldn't consider it giallo.
I know it's giallo inspired, but like, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Oh, I was gonna say I don't consider Suspiria as well as this one. I don't consider it giallo, even though it might have the same film techniques or like inspired by giallo type killings, stylized killings. But I feel like with giallos, it's really almost investigations. Like it's almost a whodunit. There's the black gloved killer, which there's elements of that here, but it's not. It's a kind of a departure. It's almost like it's just a supernatural horror. It's like witch horror more than giallo.
And I know the only one that I think straight up giallo film is Torso, one of our early films that I think is just me and you, Matt. Like, because I think it was like
it's our fifth episode.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was really early.
Yeah. Yeah, but I would say Deep Red, which is Dario Argento, which is before Suspiria, is more giallo.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's a giallo where he witnesses the murder of a woman, like an axe murder of a woman, and then it's like an investigation into who did it. That one's more so like giallo, like Torso, than these two.
There's another one that's kind of like that. It's like The Bird and the Crystal Plumage, I think it's called. Yeah, that one's good. That one's more. It's more grounded. It's not as supernatural as his other movies.
Yes, it's funny you mentioned grounded.
Yeah. I say that. Film. I say that loosely with Dario Argento.
I'm learning so much right now.
Well, I also, in just doing some research on the horror significance of the genre that it falls into, it could have been giallo. As we mentioned, it's not really. But people I saw argue it for gothic fantasy, which is kind of the realm of, Frankenstein, where it's really about the setting and like the duality of the characters. Like there's two sides to everybody. And I think this movie does have that because literally the witches are kind of defined by the house they live in. Like that's their whole thing is they embody this house and they're able to be on this earth because of these houses they're contained in, which is like gothic literature or gothic fantasy. That's what it's all about. And the destruction of that forest comes tumbling down when the building comes down. Like in the Fall of the House of Usher, which is Poe. And in this movie, spoiler alert, or Suspiria, when the house catches on fire, that's kind of like the climactic scene.
You mean Inferno?
What did I say?
You said Suspiria.
Oh, well, I guess it works for both in Suspiria and Inferno, yeah. But I thought that was an interesting take as well, where it does have a lot of gothic elements, where the house and the setting of the house as a character is pretty prevalent.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
Well, do we dare I say, go into the plot and give some of our listeners a deep dive into...
Sure.
Let's go.
What is the plot of Inferno?
That's a good fucking question, honestly.
Right? Like, I think the easiest part is the part I usually do, which is like Act 1, which is like the setup. And from there, it's kind of your interpretation. Because it starts out with Rose, as I mentioned, she's reading a book called The Three Mothers, and there's exposition from the author, a voiceover narration telling who the sisters are and the mothers. Mother Suspiria, who's in Suspiria, Mother of Darkness, which is the youngest and the most evil, which is our witch in Inferno, we will learn, and then Mother of Tears. And she thinks that she's living in a house that is home to one of these witches. So she goes to the next door antique owner, the shop that's right next door, and happened to have that book, and basically tries to investigate if this house really is home to the Mother of Darkness. And she goes down into the cellar, which is what the book tells her to do to find the witch. And it's a really interesting sequence, I thought, when she went down into the cellar, where it kind of seems like it's these endless caverns, or like places she can go, where I got kind of confused where she even was in the building. And
yeah.
I had no point of reference. And then she ends up going down to this hole in the ground where a pipe leak is leaking water, and it's like an underwater kind of cavern as well.
Yeah, it's like a whole fucking house down there.
Yeah, and she's just like swimming. I'm like, this is not up to code, like at all. Like how is it still leaking? Like it's clearly flooding several floors. But anyway, I thought that was a really interesting sequence where she's trying to find right from the get-go the Mother of Darkness, and she dropped her keys, and she was trying to retrieve her keys, and we kind of see, it looks like some corpses float up in front of her, and she's freaking out, and we see some hands lurch out, kind of trying to grab her, some really old, wrinkled hands, and that's the start of Inferno. That scene was really dreamlike to me.
100%.
Yeah. It was very odd. It was very strange.
Yeah. And I think after that, to move the plot along, is she's going to write a letter to her brother, who is in Rome, and tell her about the incident, and thinks that she's found one of these three mothers. To which I believe it gets sent to him. We meet him in Rome.
Yeah.
Taking this class. But this letter is trying to get to him from his sister. But I don't think he doesn't ever receive it.
He does. So I don't know if this is like your cutoff point, because I don't know.
Yeah, go for it. Yes, please.
Is there plot? I don't know. He gets it, and he's like trying to read it, and like there's like a very attractive student in front of him with like a cat, and then she like distracts him, so she's very witchy. She's got like a little witch vibe going on, trying to prevent him from reading it, and then like he like forgets it. I feel like he's like, I don't know, I guess he gets bewitched or something, just totally like forgets about the letter. And then but his friend, who is sitting right next to him, like got the letter and was like gonna like give it back to him, but then like she reads it for some reason in a cab, and then like decides to check out. I think she goes to like a super old library, I think is what it is, and finds the book, and like goes into another crazy underground thing in the library and gets attacked by some creature, and I can't remember if she loses the letter. I don't know. I think she still had it, actually. And then we follow her for a while, and then like some other dude like is like, oh yeah, I'll hang out with you since you're scared or whatever, and I was like, what's happening?
Oh yeah.
And then she calls the guy, and then like the two people die. Like her, it's just like every time there's like a new character, like they die.
Yeah.
Cause like then like the brother shows up and he like calls the sister, and that's when we see like the sister die, because we follow her for like another 10 minutes, I think, and then he goes to visit her, and then that's where he meets like that like weird lady,
the neighbor, right?
Yeah, I don't even remember what happens to her. I think she dies. I don't even remember. I know she had a weird butler. I think she's sick. I don't know.
She did have the butler, yeah, and she was pretty rich, is what I
Yeah, she's like a countess or something. Like, was she friends with the guy's sister? Can we reasonably infer that, or?
I would assume.
I took it. They spoke enough that they were good acquaintances.
Okay.
What do you know what happened to her? Because I literally can't remember what happened to her.
I think not like I think she just is forgotten about. Like some things happen in her home. No spoiler alerts yet.
Yeah, it was like. So, what were you gonna say?
Oh, I just think she's kind of forgotten about after the brother shows up and starts investigating.
It's like you kind of see her, like, he starts to check out some stuff that she's like has concerns about the house as well, because like she talked about it with his sister, and he kind of does his own investigation, and then like meets up with her, and then he like gets knocked out. Like, this is, like, actually getting close to, like, the climax. And then, like, I remember she sees him from a window. Then I don't remember what happens to her at all after that.
She gets, like, stabbed and killed.
Does she? I could not remember.
Yeah.
Could not remember that at all.
Because, like, the dark figure that keeps, like, killing everybody, like, shows up and, like, chases her around. And then,
Oh, wait, is this where he, like, with the window? Is, like, he brings the window on her head, like, over and over again? Is that her?
I
thought that was Rose.
Okay.
Oh, that was his sister. That's right, it was his sister.
I think that was his sister, yeah.
That's right. Then I don't know what happens there.
Like, that's happened to somebody. But, yeah. And then, when the brother, Mark, gets there, he meets, the wheelchair-bound Professor Arnold, and then his nurse. They were just kind of a little bit weird to me, like, right off the bat. But, you know, otherwise seem a little bit harmless. Okay, so then after the Countess Elise has been killed, Mark ends up getting away, and he asks that same antique dealer that his sister got the book from, you know, like, where is she? He ends up being unhelpful, but later that night he actually gets killed himself by a hot dog vendor.
Yeah, that was a bizarre scene.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, like, okay, look, like, he was, like, drowning cats, so I wasn't really, like, on his train, you know? Like, I felt bad that he died, but, you know, he was, like, that's not okay.
Mm-hmm.
So...
As Netflix teaches us, you don't fuck with cats.
You don't.
That's right.
Yeah. I think it was led to believe that hot dog vendor was bewitched by Mother of Darkness because he was killing the cats, which were somehow connected to the Mother of Darkness.
Yeah, because I think she just has like a shit ton of cats.
Yeah, okay. And he was going to kill them. Because if you saw, and I don't mean to interject too much, but he like looks like he walks on water to stab him. Did you guys see that?
Yeah.
Didn't even notice.
Do you have this in trivia later? Because I don't have to say
no.
it.
Fire away.
Okay. Okay, cool. Apparently, which we haven't spoke about, Mario Bava, who did a lot of work on this film.
That's true.
They like put plexiglass, I guess, underneath the water just a little bit, so it looked like he was walking on water to kind of give the illusion that he was bewitched. Like this guy wasn't just a random guy.
Okay.
He was clearly bewitched in some capacity to go kill this guy.
Okay.
That's why I look like. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I guess like to what you were saying, like it was like more of a Bava film than an Argento movie, because I think Bava like was this. I think Argento was like, yeah, fucking go for it, I guess. Yeah. I don't know, because I think he died like somewhat after that, so I think it was like his last hurrah.
It's the last Bava Argento collaboration. This movie is.
Okay.
For those who don't know, oh, sorry.
Sorry, cut this out, please. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, for people who don't know, Bava is like kind of. You can stop me. Is kind of an icon in giallo, or at least Italian horror, like with Black Sunday, which we've done.
Yeah, I mean he definitely is.
Okay. Yeah, even before Argento.
Yeah, I mean, like, he's a huge inspiration for Argento, you could just tell. Like, I haven't seen many of Bava films. I think I've only seen, like, 3, as opposed to whether I've seen, like, 10 Argento movies, somewhere around there. So it's just, I think I was introduced to Dario Argento first and was super into that. And then, like, I was like, oh, who's Mario Bava? And then, like, kind of stumble across him, but I feel like his movies are, like, a little harder to find.
They're a little older.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Lindsay, sorry for interrupting you.
No, that was a nice
Please continue.
tangent. Yes, hot dog vendor, not in his right mind. Makes a lot more sense now. So, yes. So basically, like, everyone just starts dying in the building. So it's not looking too good. Mark figures out that what his sister Rose was referring to in the letter, there's like this clue, that they keep kind of getting at, where they say, like, it's beneath the soles of your shoes, I think it was. So, it turns out underneath the floorboards, there's the secret crawl space. So he kind of climbs through that, goes through these hidden passages, and finds who else but Professor Arnold,
Dun, dun, dun.
who through this, very high-tech voice generator, reveals that he's Varelli, the one who, in the beginning of the movie, was narrating the book and had built these houses for these sisters. So he tries to kill Mark, of course, but during the fight, he actually ends up choking himself and dies. But before he does that, he warns Mark that he's still being watched. So then Mark soon learns after that the nurse is Mater Tenebrum. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but one of the sisters, who then turns into death personified, quite literally. She's about ready to attack him, but, meanwhile, the whole time a fire has been circulating throughout the building due to a dropped candle. And at this point, this allows Mark to escape from death, and she ends up getting caught in the debris, which ultimately brings her to an end. And that's where we leave with Inferno.
Yeah, she was just like screaming. She's like, ah! Don't forget about the gothic opera music that was playing throughout the movie.
Yes, that added a lot of suspense.
I was going to ask about that, because Suspiria is really known, I feel like, for its soundtrack that Goblin did.
Yeah.
What did you guys think, if you can recall that soundtrack at all, compared to what they did with Inferno? Goblin did not do this one. This was by Kenneth. I'm trying to look for... I had his name written down. But it was like a progressive rock guy that Argento knew.
I wasn't as super into it. Like, personally, I prefer, like, when Goblin did his movies. Because Goblin did his movies quite a lot. Like, it was, like, at least...
They did Deep Red, too.
Yeah, it was at least, like, another time, I think, too. Mm-hmm. It was... I think it was cool, but it didn't, like, fit the movie for me. It, like, was, like, almost too jarring.
Yeah, that's a good point. I feel like, and it was really only used in that climactic scene where he's kind of crawling through the building, and for the rest of the other parts of the movie, I feel like the scenes are kind of drawn out. The death scenes are drawn out, which is typical giallo, like long, drawn out death scenes. So, and they didn't use the music then, but only at this last part. It was jarring. Is a good point for it. It was all of a sudden this like operatic rock ensemble kicks in as he's running through the building.
Yeah, so not quite consistent, huh?
Yeah, and to that point as well, not so much the music, but Suspiria is really known for its visuals. Like a lot of like filtered shots. It was blues and reds, and it was made to look like a fairy tale a little bit. Or like a fairy tale type story put into a horror context. A lot of that can be seen here in Inferno, and I was also wondering what you guys thought of a lot of the style of the movie, if you particularly enjoyed it, or how it kind of compares to Suspiria, if it's in any way the same.
I mean, to me, Suspiria is better in every way. It's just I like it. I feel like it's really hard to compete with. For Argento, especially, like, I feel like for me, Suspiria is his pinnacle of like really good filmmaking, and like, I mean, you could also throw in Deep Red in there too, but like, I feel like for me, I feel like Suspiria is what drew me to him and why I like him a lot, and it's like, to me, spoiler I guess for a little later, that Inferno is just like a lesser Suspiria in every way. Like, it just like almost feels like a copycat, and I wonder if that's because I guess Argento wasn't really involved, because like like you said, Bava was like more of like the director, and like Bava style is different. It is more like his movies are giallo through and through. I feel like they're very like black gloves, black ski mask kind of murder kind of thing, and I don't know. I guess maybe the two. I know they worked together a lot, but I don't know. It felt like they mixed together too much where it didn't work. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
That was beautifully said. I have nothing to add, and I agree.
Oh,
with
really?
everything.
I was really hoping that made any sense at all.
I'm with you.
No, it definitely does, and not to get in Defend or Destroy yet for me, but I will say, even though Suspiria uses a lot of the visuals similarly to Inferno, like it's very colorful, dreamlike, fairy tale-esque in some regards, but there was at least a better depiction of a plot in Suspiria, even though it was kind of, dreamlike in itself. There was a plot, and it was kind of a mystery for our main character, and it led to a climax where I feel like I didn't fully understand, like Rose, or I think his name was David, the brother, why they gave a shit about the three mothers, and who, like, I don't know, like why she started searching for it in the first place, and then it kind of was like all over just to get to see the witch, and it just kind of sometimes dragged. Even though it looked pretty, I didn't have any connection.
It's a shame because like all the pieces are there, but it just like the execution of it like just felt not as good, and I like can't determine why.
And one thing about the writing, Daria Nicolodia. Or Nicolodia, she, I believe it's a she, right? Yes. She co-wrote Suspiria with Dario Argento, and her name can be seen on the credits. But I was reading, she worked really hard, like he didn't even want to put her name on there. And I guess she came up with the idea for this movie, and he wrote it, kind of with Bava, to some extent. And she didn't fight at all to try to get writing credits because of the hell she went through with Suspiria. So maybe that could be a reasoning where she had more of a influence in the writing of Suspiria with him, and kind of, I guess, maybe toned it down or tied it together better. Yeah. Where she was like, I'm not even going to try to put up with you this time.
See, these fucking filmmakers, they gotta learn. Look what George Lucas. He had his wife fucking edit his movies early on in the original trilogy, and then when he wrote the prequels, fucking everyone hated them. But now they like them because everyone hates the sequels now, but that's another story. Don't be a dick to your female co-workers is the moral of the story.
Amen to that, brother.
For Inferno, do we have any sweet trivia?
You know it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bum-ba-da-ba.
So, let's see. Alright, so we've talked a lot about Mario Bava being heavily involved. According to one of the actresses, like almost all of her scenes were directed by Mario Bava, and that Dario was like rarely on set through most of the shoot, and I think that was most likely due to him having a serious case of hepatitis throughout filming. He was bedridden for a few days at a point, and has said that this movie, as a result, is possibly his most challenging and least favorite because he really wasn't able to be present during the filming. So I feel like that kind of explains a lot with how this movie kind of turned out artistically, and all that. And then, just a small tidbit for you. So despite his absence, all of the the murderer's hands in the movie were Dario Argento's. So I appreciate that, especially knowing the background of what he was going through.
Interesting.
That's it. That's all the trivia I got.
I had an interesting note that I read, and it just really, because it brings it back to the podcast, was the original choice for the lead role, who was the brother. It was going to be James Wood, but he turned it down because he had agreed to do Videodrome, which was our first blog on this podcast, and written by Pete. So, bringing it full circle.
Wait, did I wrote that one?
Yeah, you wrote a Videodrome podcast. Well, it was, you used it as like a case study, I think, for something about like digital movies, and when movies went digital instead of using film.
I like vaguely remember that was a long time. That was a long time ago.
That was years ago, yeah.
Nice.
Do we know anything about how this fared via box office or reception?
I have a feeling that it didn't really have much of a chance.
I agree with that statement.
I didn't really find exact numbers for how much it made. I know it was a $3 million budget in American dollars, and I just know it wasn't really a box office success. So it didn't really have any... The Suspiria hangover didn't really help it at all. American audiences didn't really seem taken by it. And I think there was something with 20th Century Fox stopped distributing it. They had all the rights, and they could have gone like national with it and decided not to. Like, really kind of held off, I think, based on maybe early reception internationally.
That's so when we were really starting to pump out slashers, I feel like, at that point. So, like, I feel like anything that was, like, international just got drowned out because, like, you know, Halloween was already out, Black Christmas, Texas Chainsaw, and then, like,
and Friday
the 13th, and then you had, like, 10,000 copies after that.
That's a good point, yeah. It probably wasn't what people were interested in. Like we talked about with Slither last time, where if it was made today, it probably would have made more of a success than in 2006 or 5 when it came out.
Yeah, when like torture porn was in its heyday.
Exactly. The Hostels and the Saws and all those movies. Yeah, and I know critically, I think it was kind of initially not received well. I don't think people thought it. They really compared it immediately to Suspiria, which is rightfully so. It's supposed to be like a sequel, and they thought it wasn't that good, and like talked about how there was plot holes or there was really no plot. It was kind of like a scattered mess of like visuals. But I think since then it's really picked up like a cult following, more so people who are getting into Argento, and that's why it's like higher on Rotten Tomatoes, because people who like that style and they aren't so connected to the times of like it being his next follow-up to Suspiria can be like, it's still good on its own, like it's fun. It's not the worst thing ever made. So I think it's gotten better over the years, or reception's gotten better. All right, do we have any other trivia points or talking points before we go into Defend or Destroy?
I don't think so.
Nah.
Oh, all right. Does anybody want to volunteer to go first?
Sure. Unless you wanted to go first, Lindsay. You look like
it's all you. It's all you.
As I kind of alluded to earlier, I wasn't as crazy about this movie. I almost said Opera, which is a different Argento movie. It's just a movie I actually really like by him. But this is Inferno. I just said it's like a lesser Suspiria in every way. Like, it's got cool qualities in my personal I just can't get past that it just feels like a copy, my own biases. And it's just like the music is not as cool, the visuals aren't as cool. And that's really like the bread and butter of like Argento movies. And like it, I think also what hurts my like my first Argento movie was Suspiria, which like I said is like his best. So like everything after that was just like a lesser movie, which kind of sucked. But like I did find others that I enjoyed, luckily, but this isn't one of them. It's okay, but okay is not good enough, so I think I'm going to destroy it.
Lindsay, would you like to go, or do you want me to go first?
Yeah. No, I can, yeah. On the heels of that, you know, I agree that I think, like, with most sequels, you know, its predecessor was superior by a long shot. I found that the beginning was really intriguing and really chilling. I was really, like, into it and wanting to see where it went next, and I thought the end was pretty well done, too. But everything in between kind of fell a bit flat for me. I would have been interested to see how this would have turned out if Argento hadn't been sick during filming and had been able to be more hands-on. So that being said, I would destroy it, just because it didn't make the lasting impression on me like Suspiria did. I do appreciate that it continues the story of what would ultimately be Argento's Three Mothers trilogy. And again, I think you can watch these two. You know, you don't have to see Suspiria to watch this one. And I haven't seen the third one, so I can't speak on that. But, you know, from what I've seen so far, Suspiria is the one to see if you're only going to watch one. So it's a solid destroy.
All right. So me. Sorry, I was looking at some notes that I wrote down earlier on my phone. So I really like giallo movies. I really like Suspiria a lot, so that's why I wanted to do another Three Mothers, part of that trilogy. So for me, I'll start with what I enjoyed about the movie, and what I like about the series is, like, he takes on the supernatural, and it's almost like a fever dream of what a witch movie would be. Like, so I really like the idea that he makes it, the building is part of the character, like the building is ominous in and of itself. It like encompasses evil, so it could be lurking around every corner. It might not be a person, it's like a spirit, or you don't really know. And I love that he was in Suspiria, and it has it in this movie as well. But I will say, I think Suspiria did a better job of weaving together an entire plot, where I was following the character the whole time. I didn't really feel connected to Dave or why they were doing this in the first place. So as Lindsay said, the beginning hooked me. The ending was pretty revealing as well, but there was kind of a lull in the middle there for a while, and it was hour and 40-minute movie that it was visually striking, but it could have been a little tighter, and it kind of lost my attention. But I love, like, that climax where, you know, you finally see the Mother of Darkness, but it's the nurse. But is it the nurse? Is she just displaying herself to Dave as the nurse because that's what he can relate to? And they're literally in a room of smoke and mirrors. So that's a metaphor right there for, like, is this even real? Am I even in here? And, like, from anything we've watched, evil doesn't just leave that easily. Like, the fire burns down the house and she's gone. I'm sure the Mother of Darkness is still out there. Like, it was way too easy, and so I enjoyed that aspect that he really brings to these supernatural witch films, but this one didn't really cut it. I thought there was way too much downtime that kind of had me bored through parts of it, even though visually striking. So I destroy Inferno.
I honestly didn't expect it. I thought you were going to have a soft spot for it.
I think it's good. I think it's, like, again, it's not the worst thing in the world, but we have to defend or destroy. And I think we have to do it, and I just would destroy. I think it was, as Lindsay said, maybe if he was fully there, or he let Daria write more, or Bava wasn't so much of an influence, it just kind of seemed like a mess. Like, they all didn't really go full-heartedly into it. And maybe that would have made it better.
Too many cooks in the kitchen.
Too many cooks in the kitchen, exactly, yeah. So that's probably what hurt it. Yeah, but with that, we have a full-on destroy of Inferno. I think last week we did a full-on defend of Slither, right? We all defended Slither.
I did defend
right,
Slither.
Yeah. I loved that movie. Didn't expect to. Pleasant surprise.
Yeah. So, but this week, crushed. Inferno. is destroyed. But if you want to watch it, I know it's on Shudder. I'm sure you can find it online somewhere as well.
It's on Amazon Prime as well. Is how I watched it.
Okay, so it's on Amazon Prime if you want to watch it there as well. Until next time, we are on YouTube. We are on SoundCloud to listen to us, as well as iTunes. You can listen to us there or get us on Facebook, Twitter, and our website. We'd love to hear what you guys are thinking about any mini episodes or movies you'd like us to discuss. We'd love to hear it from you, or any blogs you'd love us to write, because we are writers as well as speakers on this podcast. But until next time, I am Matt Johnson, and I will remain in the shadows.